Welcome everybody to our first webinar of the year. This is a session being presented. Our presenter today is Dr. Claudia Ortu from the University of Cagliari in Sardinia, I believe. Is that right, Sardinia? Yes, wonderful. She's a researcher.
Yes, it's Cagliari.
Cagliari?
In Sardinia. Cagliari in Sardinia.
Thank you.
So.
Wonderful. And she's here today presenting a paper, the place of feelings, empathetic discourse as a strategy for trade union organizing. And Claudia's background has been in researching trade unions and various other language to do with class or inequalities of various descriptions. And she recently published a book in 2023 called Language in Class, co-authored a book, and that's doing very well. She was just telling me earlier, so that's terrific. The way we'll work is we're recording, and we will probably have about 50 minutes for presentation. And Claudia, I'll give you a 5-minute warning if that's all right with you. Terrific. And then once Claudia's finished, we'll have about 30 minutes for discussion. So welcome everybody, particularly Claudia. And Claudia will be presenting some slides, and then afterwards I'll share my screen and do a little promo on the special issue journal that's coming out in July, which features Claudia. Okay, over to you. You're on mute. Yeah.
And let me share. And here we are. Welcome everyone. Thank you, Elizabeth, and everyone for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. It's morning in Sardinia. It's early morning in Sardinia, which means that my house is waking up. So you might hear some waking up noises from the house. So I'm sorry for that, but this is how we are operating today. But I'm still very happy to be able to talk about my beloved trade unions to you. And it was, it was nice to hear that your year is just beginning, because our year is ending. So and also hearing you talking about time and rainy days and stuff, here it's summer. Nowadays, it's a summer in the climate crisis, which also means it's a very hot summer. And so here we are trying to survive all this. But to go back to the topic that we are discussing today, as Elizabeth said, the topic that I want to deal with is the place of feelings. You will understand the title as soon as I move into the presentation, in a way, because my study is a study of empathetic discourse, but an empathetic discourse that has been used for a very specific goal, okay, in order to perform a very specific task. And this is particularly surprising in trade union discourse, okay? I have been dealing with anti-trade union discourse on the part of governments mostly. But then when I started to study the discourse of trade unions, I found the Alphabet Workers Union, which is the one that I'm going to talk about today. And I found it very interesting because in the course of my studies before, even if my focus was on the discourse of power, I had seen examples of trade union discourse. And the discourse of the Alphabet Workers Union that you will see today was completely surprising for me, okay, because it was based on this idea of empathy, and you will see how they do this. But clearly, we have to set the scene in a way for this type of discourse, in a way that the context, the largest context, the larger semiotic context for this discourse. And I would say that the largest semiotic context is characterized by a discourse, like what I call an automation discourse. The automation discourse is a discourse that presents automation and all the developments of the fourth industrial revolution as dangerous, okay, as a menace for workers around the world. Workers around the world are supposed to be losing their jobs in their millions because of the new trend in automation. Especially there are factories such as the Tesla factories that are completely automated. And so workers have been expelled from the factories because robots are doing their jobs. Okay, so especially in the US, which is the place where the Alphabet Workers Union was formed, especially there, this automation discourse has been around for many years now. We would say, like in the second half of the 2010s, that has been a very prevailing discourse for some time. So much so that also President Obama referred to it in one of his most famous speeches. So, I mean, the climate, the semiotic climate in a way, if I can create new concepts as I go on, the semiotic climate was particularly tough in a way. So people were worried, especially the middle classes, were worried that they would, because of automation, lose their jobs. And this also, in the last years, 2023, for example, has the reality has shown that this is actually happening. And this is demonstrated, for example, by the strike of the workers in the film industry. In 2023, workers in the film industry went on strike because their images that had been elaborated with AI, okay, artificial intelligence, their images were used by production companies without paying them. Okay, once they were taken, their images were taken, then with AI, producers could make them work without them knowing, and clearly without them being paid. Okay, so this is very real, that the strike went on for ages, and this is also true for screenwriters, etc., for all the jobs that are linked to that industry. So and also, for example, after the pandemic, even in the IT industry, there were massive layoffs because some of the processes that people used to undertake and supervise, they were undertaken by artificial intelligence, okay, directly. So this is a very, very important, it is important to understand that people in those industries and in any industry, in the United States especially, were immersed in this idea of, oh, I'm going to lose my job. My job is not safe anymore. I thought I was middle class. I thought I was well-to-do. But now my job could be taken by a robot anytime. So this is the idea and the moment. In the IT, they had, because they also know what the direction is, in the IT industry, this was very common. One other aspect that was very common in the IT industry was that workers in that industry had never, ever unionized in the traditional sense before 2019. Okay, it is from 2019 that workers in the IT sector on both sides of the Atlantic, if we just look at the Anglosphere, if we can call it like that, started to create traditional unions. Because before that, they would only have like pressure groups on single issues that would try and get the attention of management, okay, in order to present their grievances, okay. Most of the times, though, because these people, they felt so privileged in a way that they were working in a very, you know, horizontal type of industry, etc., not vertical, they would mostly mobilize for issues such as, oh, just imagine one example in Google is the real names policy. Google, when they launched their social network that was Google Plus, okay, which is defunct now, doesn't exist anymore, they did it with a real name policy. A real name policy meant that if you enrolled in a way on the social network with a fictitious name, or even with a name that seemed fictitious to someone in the United States looking at it, you would be banned, you would be prevented from having your account. So this meant that, for example, political people who were political activists or LGBTQ plus people, etc., that would like that would normally try and use different names from their given names, they would be banned from Google Plus. And one of the first actions undertaken by this group of workers in Google was to get rid of the real names policy. So this is an issue that you wouldn't normally see defended by a trade union, okay? So these people, they felt like, oh, we are not, like, we don't need to really fight for our rights as workers. We need to fight for the soul of our company. That was more or less the idea. They felt they were secure in their jobs. And so this is what they did most of the times. Another issue that I would like to highlight about the general climate in the IT sector is that people in the IT sector, and there are studies that talk about it. I can't find the name now. Oh my God. But still, there are studies that demonstrate how people in the tech industry, oh yes, Woodcock and Hughes, 2023, they demonstrate people in the tech industry, they feel and they see themselves as isolated, as put one against the other, competing in the market as individuals for their jobs. So in a way, they are, yes, they have a boss, okay, they are workers, but at the same time, they feel as if they are their own bosses in a way. So they have to compete as companies for jobs and opportunities. And this is also part of the reason why unionization was not strong in the IT sector. But finally, so as I said before, in those years, 2019 and through the whole COVID-19 crisis, new unions started to appear. And the union that whose discourse I want to present today, the Alphabet Workers Union, was created in 2021. Actually, its founding conference was held on the 4th of February, on the 4th of January, 2021. Okay, so it was a very, very new union when I started studying it. I was interested in seeing what was happening, but because it was in 2021, instead of having the traditional picture of maybe a theater, you know, with all the banners that we're used to in the 1900s or 1800s also, the pictures of the funding conference of Alphabet Workers Union are like this. Unfortunately, because the funding conference happened on Zoom, in the same way as our talk is happening now. Okay, so in order to still give you an idea of how many people were participating, how many people were promoting the union, they published on their website these still pictures of the people participating in the funding conference, which is also interesting. As you can see, all of them try and promote the logo of the trade union, and some of them are not showing, but some of them use it as the background. This is quite interesting, and this is a part that I still have to study in depth, but it is interesting in terms of self-representation of people who participated in the creation of the union. What did I want to say apart from this? Oh yes, clearly. Oh yeah, I anticipated the fact of the real names policy that I wanted to talk about on this slide. So let's take that for granted. The point is also, as you can see, there's also the logo of the union on your right, which I am going to describe in more detail because it's very interesting. But let me take advantage of this slide to just say one thing. As the introduction and the promotional material that Elizabeth sent around for today's talk says, what I'm presenting now is a phase in the development of the Alphabet Workers Union. Because since when was it? In 2023, actually, when I was writing my paper, the way in which the union presents itself changed drastically. So the hypothesis around the whole issue of the empathetic discourse is that empathetic discourse was used in order to enlarge the union, enlarge what I would call the militant base, but the membership in a more neutral language, the membership of the trade union was empathetic discourse, okay? But then once that objective had been achieved, which has been achieved, it's true, they started with a couple of hundred people and they ended with more than 2,000 people. So that was very effective. But then they changed into a more traditional kind of discourse. So this is a moment in time, the picture of a moment in time in the development of unionization in the IT industry. This is a disclaimer that I need to make, okay, at the beginning of this presentation before I move on, okay? But for us, since we are interested in the uses of empathetic discourse, I think that it is still relevant to see how in different moments, okay, an empathetic discourse might be functional to the scope of one's communication strategies, okay? So, as you would normally expect in an academic talk, sorry, I need to drink. I want to rapidly show what methodology I used for my study. Clearly, my take on any type of communication is that any type of communication is multimodal in its essence, okay? But there are degrees in the multimodality of each text, let's say. So I normally, when I deal with websites, as it is in this case, I normally start by looking at the visual mode. Okay, so all the analysis is all multimodal, but I normally start by looking at the visual mode, because by looking at the visual mode, and especially at the textual metafunction as performed in the visual mode, I am able to understand what the author, in a way, the reading path that the author tries to suggest, okay, for their text. And I can understand by studying framing what is construed as connected or disconnected inside the space, and thus belonging or not belonging to the same category, for example, depending on the levels of framing. I am able to understand what salience is attributed to each element. So whether one element is more important, is construed as more important than others by looking at foregrounding or the use of color or relative shape, for example, and also information value. So with information value, I am able to understand whether the text is organized according to or wants to communicate something in which we have a distinction between an ideal, okay, general idea of what is said, and a real part, which would be the case when we have a text that is organized along the vertical axis, or whether my text is making a distinction between what is considered given or what is considered new, if it is organized along the horizontal axis. Okay, so for me, in a text such as this, a website, the most important, the preliminary work that has to be done is from the point of view of the visual mode in a multimodal discourse analysis framework, and especially with the textual metafunction. Okay. Then I also clearly, still in the visual mode, look at the ideational metafunction, because I need to describe the represented participants and whether, not in this case clearly, but whether represented participants are depicted as undertaking actions, and in a case, what actions. In our case, we don't have actions, but we have represented participants that we will look at performed visually, okay, that we will look at in more detail, even in more detail than the one you can find on the article, because I didn't have space to put everything in the article that is going to be published. So we will look at represented participants in the visual mode, and also so the ideational metafunction, but also with systemic functional linguistics in the verbal mode. Okay, so the ideational metafunction is the bridge that takes us from the visual to the verbal mode. Apart from that, so looking at again represented participants in the verbal mode, we will also look at the very important interpersonal metafunction. Clearly, as the scope of the website is to interact with interactive participants that are the ones who are supposed to enroll, who are supposed to become members of the union, the interpersonal metafunction is of paramount importance, clearly. And one particular aspect, okay, of the interpersonal metafunction that I will focus my interest on is the one described, the one that is studied through, is studied through the paradigm of appraisal theory, by starting with Martin and White, okay, because I need to understand, okay, the construal of feelings in my text. Okay, so this is the focus of the analysis in the last part. Okay, so let me start with the visual mode and the textual metafunction. A very interesting, a very interesting aspect, even before that, okay, this is the homepage, okay, of the Alphabet Workers Union. Surprisingly, for those who are used to websites nowadays, is the fact that what you see there is actually the whole homepage. Okay, we are now used to homepages that go scrolling and scrolling and scrolling for ages, okay, until you reach the end. And that it was already like, we're talking about 2021, it was already like that in 2021. But this collective author that we can hypothesize, which is the Alphabet Workers Union, decides to go for a static web page, which is very surprising, very original. Okay, so clearly I had to make sense, first of all, of this characteristic of the website, of the homepage. And the way, I mean, I opened two possibilities. I can't really, I think they're both right in a way. First of all, I think that for people who are IT savvy, who are IT geeks, etc., the idea of the long scrolling web page is like an idea of a deterioration of the internet. It is the moment in which people who don't have an idea of how IT works are able to create their own websites. Okay, so in a way, it is a moment in which their expertise is challenged, because this type of websites can only, since the onset of this long scrolling web page and let's say social networks, which are the ones who created this idea of the long scroll, okay, meant that everyone could have something similar to a website. Not only that, it also meant that many companies that would normally hire a webmaster in order to be on the internet would only create a Facebook page and try to get in contact with their customers via a Facebook page. It is, I know people, I mean, they are quite upset because they said, oh, now everyone has a Facebook page and they don't pay us to create their own web pages, not to be on the internet. So that's one issue. The other issue, I think, is kind of political, in the sense that, as I anticipated before, the long scrolling web page is problematic not only because of work-related issues, but also because it is deemed by many studies to be responsible for the addictive power of social networks. Okay, so people spend hours and hours scrolling in order to get to new surprising content. Okay, and this idea of going on scrolling and scrolling it has been highlighted as particularly addictive for users of social networks, and so that's also an issue. The last idea and the last hypothesis that I want to make is that, sorry, it's getting hot, and I need to put on. Oh, it's not working. Okay. The last thing is, among all the pages, all the web pages, all the home pages that you can have on the internet, the one that is famously static but still very important is the research page by Google. The research page by Google, which is the company, okay, that they work for, is static, and you can grab the whole of the web page in one screen. Okay, So in a way, I would say, I would advance the hypothesis that these workers are trying to say also, you know, Google is not just that, we are also Google. It's not just the company that has contracts with the military. It's not just the company that works together with Israel, for example, in order to, you know, control places, because they've also protested those type of relationship. We are also Google. Okay, so we are reclaiming that identity. But going back to our web page and our methodology, clearly what I could find in this static web page is that the information is organized along the vertical axis. Okay, the tendency, the way in which the page is divided is along the vertical axis. Okay, and I can say that because can you see? You can see my mouse, right? As I move it, the cursor. Yes. Okay. So you can see it because you can see instances of framing that divide the page along. Okay, the vertical, in vertical spaces, in spaces that come one after the other in a vertical reading path. Okay, so we are brought to read along this path. So we have, for example, so I was able, by looking at framing, to highlight 5 different spaces. Okay, 5 different spaces that are separated or segregated, we will see, by lines, through lines and through the use of color, for example. So we have the first space, which is this one in white, that is, I would say, separated, okay, from the second space, space 2, because with the use of a different background. In this case, I would talk about separation and not segregation, because the difference is not extreme. Okay, there is the background is not the background color is not very different from the one used in space 1. It's just slightly different. Just to give you an idea, when things become very different, it is in space 4. Okay, that's a space that is more segregated than separated in a way. So when an author uses separation instead of segregation, is saying that these 2 elements are different, but they belong to the same class in a way. If I use segregation, as it is in you know, in societies also in general, okay, so if I separate, maybe I'm saying, no, yeah, these 2 things, they belong to the same class, but they're different. If I'm segregating, I'm saying these 2 elements, these 2 entities belong to different classes. Okay, so here we do this, clearly we are, you know, technical language is inspired by the everyday use of words. So we take from that and then we specify the meaning. So here we can say space 4 is segregated from space 3. Okay, but we can't say that space 2 is segregated from space 1. That's my hypothesis. So we have these these 5 different spaces that go from the most ideal element, and I will explain in a moment what we mean, what Kress and Van Leuven actually mean by ideal, from the real. This is the reading path that we are presented with. Okay, so what we mean by ideal, again, that's a label. It's a wide label. It means the general information of my text. Okay. Whereas when we talk about the real, we are talking not just about reality as opposed to something ideal. So, for example, in ads, you would normally have the picture that represents what you can get by buying the product. So the ideal world, the ideal identity also for yourself that you can reach by consuming the product. And then in the bottom part, in the real part, you will find you are more, it is easier for you to find the practical information, whatever the product is made of. And sometimes you also have a strong segregation between the visual part and the verbal part. The verbal part is normally charged with doing the real job, doing the, giving the information that is factual in a way. Sometimes we have this division of labor between the visual mode and the verbal mode in a way. So in this case, as you can see, most of the work inside the space is done by the verbal mode, okay? Our text, and this is also very surprising, our text is mostly in the verbal mode. We have the visual mode just as an organizing, not just, but the verbal mode is an organizing principle, the visual mode is an organizing principle, and then it comes in some other aspects, but most of the work is done by the verbal mode in our text. Okay, so this is also important, and this is also a choice. It was a moment in which everything was visual in websites. Everything was pictures. Everything was moving, not static. Okay, so this is very, very original. Okay, and it's not like they didn't know how to do it. Clearly, they chose not to do it. So this is, again, very, very important for me. So as we move on, oh, yes, I need to talk about, I need to talk about salience. So what are the salient parts in this web page? So we talked about framing, we talked about information value, but again, what are the most salient parts in this composition? The most salient parts in this composition are clearly, I would say, this part, the central part, okay, because it is at the center, and this positioning is one aspect of salience, okay? And another salient element, I would say, is the Join Us button. Because as you can see, the Join Us button is repeated, and it is always segregated in a way, put in a very highlighted position, because it always has, as you can see also here, okay, a drastically different background, okay? And it's also, I can't see it because I have you, okay? And also here, as you can see, the Join Us button is quite salient in the composition, even if it's not big, because the relative size is one of the aspects of salience, and we can say that relative size is important to recognize this part of the composition as salient, but even without relative size, I would say that the Join Us button, because it is repeated and because it is highlighted in this way, is a very salient part in my composition. And this makes sense because they were starting with 800 members and they wanted to get to many more members. So the idea and the scope of the website was to get more members, mostly, okay? So again, we are saying that this part is the central part, and I'm going to now look at the most ideal part in more detail, so at space 1 in more detail, because this is where the union presents its identity. Okay, the trade union presents its identity in the ideal space. That's why ideal means more than just, okay, ideal. It means generalized information, but also a kind of who we are. effort from the part of the union. And so we are going to look at this ideal part in more detail now. Okay, so let me just move on. Oh, sorry, no, as you can see then, the more we move down, the more we get to practical information, okay? The most practical information is the information that you can find in space 5, okay? Which is practical and also in a way requests more cooperation from the point of view by the user, the interactive participant, which is supposed to do something in this space here and learn practical information from here. Okay, so let's move on and look at, sorry, Elizabeth, how long have I been speaking for? Because I think
I've got 12 more minutes on the timer for you when you'd be at 45. Remember, I was going to give 5 minutes. Yeah. Glad you asked.
Yes, I'm also glad I asked. Okay, so let me just do this. Okay, so we start clearly again from left to right. So this is the space. Let me just go back in a moment. So we are focusing on this part and we are moving from left, okay, through the center to the right. Okay, and because this is not on the paper, on the article, I'm going to spend some time on this, which is the identity of the Alphabet Workers Union, the logo, okay? And what is interesting about the logo is it is normally round. This is the tradition of trade unions in the United States, mostly, okay? And it employs this center margin composition. So it's a difference, not left, right, from the point of view of information value. So it's not given new, it's not ideal real. The composition is center margin. A center margin composition is a composition that gives to the center the information value of the nucleus of my information, and whatever is at the margins is considered ancillary to what is at the center. Okay, it's either ancillary, and you can have different center margin compositions, but even if you have different elements at the margins, so for example, as you would have sometimes you have that in diagrams that describe companies. You would have the CEO here, and then all the different workers put at the same level. They are all equally important, but they are all less important than what is at the center. This is the idea of a center margin composition. So what do they put at the center? They put, first of all, a clenched fist. Okay, and this is very common in trade unions in the United States, but also in the UK. For example, I'm not into Australian trade unions. I plan on going there, but okay.
Make me think.
Yes, okay, maybe we can discuss that later. Okay, so they put a clenched fist, and the usual would be to have the clenched fists that hold tools that are relevant to the trade. Okay, so sometimes you have, for example, teachers' unions, they have the clenched fist and the pencil, okay, and so on. In this case, what we have is a magnifying glass. But if we look at connotation and if we move, okay, so this is the description. What we have at the margin is the representation of circuits, okay? The circuits that we have that actually allow us to be on the internet. This is what allows us to be on the internet. So the circuits are around, they are in the margins, And what is at the center is a clenched fist with a magnifying glass. But is it any clenched fist? Is it any magnifying glass? No, it isn't. Sorry. It isn't. It is, as you will see, if you can research that after, you will see that the magnifying glass is the magnifying glass of Google. Okay, it is exactly. It's you can have magnifying glasses of different shapes, with or without a shade, as you can see here. This is a magnifying glass that says Google, in a way. Okay, that states Google. What about the clenched fist? Again, also clenched fists come in different shapes and come in different appearances. This is a clenched fist that doesn't refer to the, let's say, old working class tradition. It refers to the new left. Okay, it has characteristics that I will not go into at this moment, but everyone who is into this type of representations will immediately relate, okay, make the link between the new left and this type of clenched fist. And this says a lot about the union, okay? And as you will see, this is also recalled, because the new left is the part of the left that abandoned, in a way, the traditional working class discourse and started to deal with also identity politics and different types of discrimination. So that's when feminist discourse started to come into the discussion, as well as LGBTQ plus issues and racial issues. Everything was coming to the fore as identity politics, and the new left, okay, took that on board. From my point of view, abandoning class a bit too much, but enlarging the spectrum of the possible, as Gramsci would say, subordinate identities, okay, in a way. So this is the type of identity that the union is visually creating. Let's look at the center of our composition. The center of our composition is, as you can see, represented by this part. Okay, this is the only dynamic part in the whole homepage. Okay, that's the only thing that happens. It happens alone. You can see these two roles go together automatically, but as interactive participants, you can also play with the words in this way. Okay, so you can play and change, and all the sentences that you will be able to create with these elements are sentences that make sense. Okay, but if we leave that, oh, and again, yeah, you always end with a join us button that takes us to becoming a member. But if we leave the animation go as it is supposed to go, as it was built, we end up with these 6 sentences. We are technologists who trust each other. We are consensus objectors who stand alongside our communities. We're BIPOC workers, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color. I don't know whether that's also in Australia, that if you use it, but who fight against totalitarianism. We are empathetic workers who believe in social justice. We are workers who want pay equity, which is the most, the only, let's say, very traditional type of discourse, trade union discourse. And finally, we are alphabet workers who stand united, which is also the meaning of the clenched fist, to stand united. Workers standing united, that's the meaning of the clenched fist. And the last sentence, interestingly, is repeated on every page of the website. Then as you enter and explore it, you will see that that's the sentence that is used everywhere on the website. So it is repeated. So now that we are here, clearly we need to, we are able finally to start looking at the verbal mode in more detail. And I would say that the verbal mode continues in the central part, the work of the visual mode, and specifies it as it is in the affordances of the verbal mode, okay? Because here we have our relational clauses, okay, that we normally use to identify and to characterize, okay? So how do we, who gets characterized, who gets identified? It is we, the workers who came together in order to create the trade union, okay? And we is the carrier in these relational clauses, and then we have, and this is where the multimodality comes in, we have a use of color that puts together the attribute and the expansion of the attribute by using a color that makes them rhyme. This is a visual rhyme. Technologists clearly who trust each other. And this is very important if you think about the introduction and the lack of trust among workers in the IT sector. Okay, it is particularly important that they chose to say, you know, we are technologists. It's like we are technologists, but we trust each other. The idea is more or less, even if we are technologists, we trust each other. But okay, let's stay with the text. So again, all relational clauses with attributes that are then expanded in this way. So the color does that. Conscientious objectors, who stand alongside the communities. And this is, again, recalls the beginning of the trade union. Let's say the preparing part to the trade union, the actions they took before becoming a trade union, and maybe sorry, maybe I need to move on from the ideational metafunction to the interpersonal metafunction before I.
Yes, we've got about 5 minutes till your 50's up. We're just yeah. Well,
but this is the most, okay, let's say, sorry,
you could go over, that's fine, but yes, just be conscious of time. That would be lovely.
Sorry. No, just to go on the promotional side of things. This is the part that I deal with most on the article. So the part of the interpersonal metafunction, you will find it there, explained very well, also thanks to the interventions of the reviewers. Okay, so, but still, I need to at least say something about that in order to make sense. Okay, clearly, we are, in this case, dealing, if we follow Martin and White, we are dealing with the region of affect, where we describe the semantic region of affect, where we describe feelings, okay, and the idea is what feelings, okay, what feelings are described and what feelings are represented. Are they positive or negative? First of all. And as Martin and White suggest, the quality of being positive or negative for feelings has to be checked against what is popularly perceived as positive or negative in the given community, clearly. So how can we classify, in a way, these feelings. I would say that trust, for example, here in the first sentence, is a very positive feeling. Okay, it is a positive and surprising also in the context feeling. Okay. To stand alongside someone is also positive, depending on who you stand alongside with. But still, I would say that the main perception still is of a positive feeling. Okay, fight. Here, fighting is quite, let's say, ambiguous in a way, and really, it really depends whether it's positive or negative on what accompanies it. But if we look at totalitarianism, we can say, so whatever we are fighting against, what we are fighting against in this case, well, I would say that at least publicly, everyone is against totalitarianism, at least publicly. Okay, so it doesn't, no one will say, except for Vladimir Putin, I guess, that we are for totalitarian regimes. Okay, so no one, even those who implement them. So being against totalitarianism is still perceived as something positive, a positive action that can be undertaken. Wanting pay equity, again, that's positive. It is positive if you are a worker. Sometimes wanting, like from the point of view of bosses, wanting pay equity is not a positive feeling, but for our discourse community, it definitely is. So we can say, we can evaluate that in a positive way. And standing united is, again, something which is in the context, in the discourse community, perceived as positive. Okay, and I would say this is the first element that explains the title of my presentation. Positive feelings are placed in the ideal part, in central position, in the most salient position, because that's the only position in which something happens. There is something that moves, and so that is something that grabs the interactive participants' attention. Okay, so feelings, positive feelings, are placed in central position, in a salient position, in the ideal identity building part of our text. So this is the first element of the title. I'm going to, clearly, the identity building work goes on also in the part of the new. It is a more of a call to action, but I won't go into detail with this because I want to go on. Oh, sorry, this is an animation. Okay, no, I'm going to skip this because we don't have time. And again, because we have an ideal real composition, we have the second, in the second space, in space 2, we have the element that I had highlighted as the most salient element of our composition, okay, before looking at the movements, etc., which is the central part that mediates between the ideal, the identity, and the call for action, which is displaced in the bottom part of the website. Here we have the textual metafunction, the verbal mode performing the job, okay, mostly, but not only. Also, the choice of fonts is meaningful, okay. This is a font that is given in a Creative Commons license, okay. It is described by those who work in the industry as a humanistic font. Okay, all these elements are there in the choices made by this collective author. Okay, and so as you can see here,
Claudia, you're up to your last 5 minutes. So would you like to spend the next 5 minutes trying to pull it together? Beautiful.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes, I have started. Okay, so as you can see, again, here we have uh, two clauses. Okay, our union strives to protect. And again, we have a positive action, positive feelings, but surprisingly, we have the union and not we as the main participant. But then in the second clause we have we as the main participant. So it goes back and it creates a differentiation between these two participants, but at the same time puts them together. The union is your force, okay? We are the union. Our union does this, but we are the union in a way, okay? And again, as you can see from the visual point of view, we have a rhyme that is created between workers, society, and world, okay? And that's solidarity, democracy, and justice. And in a way, I would say that in this way, the reach of the union gets expanded in this sentence, starting from workers, okay, but then expanding to society in general and the world. And in a way, these elements of solidarity, democracy, and justice are also attributed, okay, and they become larger and larger as a scope for the union. Solidarity among workers, democracy in society, justice in the world, they all go well together, okay, placed in this way. So clearly, again, this is the central part. This mediates between identity and action that you can find in the last, the space from 3 downwards, okay? And clearly, sorry, I'm wrapping it up. I hope I demonstrated that feelings, the place of feelings for the identity of the Alphabet Workers Union is central, not only metaphorically, but physically. Okay, they placed it physically in the most salient space, in the most central space, and they do the work together with the visual and the verbal part. Okay, the feelings that are represented as central are feelings of belonging, of togetherness, of protection, mutual protection, which is something that, mutualism, something that belongs to the beginnings of unionization in the industries, that are the opposite of the feelings that we highlighted in the introduction. So feelings of isolation, feelings of danger, okay, danger, being in danger of losing one's job. And let's say that unionization is presented as join us, be with us, okay, is presented, being with someone, being together, is presented as an immediate antidote to those negative feelings. And I would say that the Alphabet Workers Union, even if then they decided to, leave their empathetic discourse on one side, they used it very well, and they were able to make this call to action be very effective, because they actually enlarged their membership basis. So being empathetic is also something that is productive. And I will end here.
Oh, thank you very much, Claudia. That was fabulous. I'm very grateful for the way you contextualized why the union went about creating a website that it did, because of the context of the workers, and then the rich multimodal analysis and the visual and the verbal modes working together, and a surprising website, I think, in the sort of websites we're used to, with so few visuals and so much verbal carrying the semantic load, but nonetheless very beautifully arranged. So yes, I have many questions, but I might see if other people would like to go first. Put your hand up or just interrupt. Now, I think David Paul-Freeman's got a chat message. Just hang on, let me. Oopsie, there's the. In what way? Yes, go ahead, David. Oh. Okay, well, I'll just read it out.
No, that's fine. I can read it out. So thank you very much, Claudia. I just wondered, because you said about you were focusing on the empathetic discourse, but you said that the union had put that aside in some way more recently. So I wondered what makes you say that? In what way have they put it aside? I think that was the phrase you used. And I wondered if maybe they had maintained both discourses, but in different domains. So, for example, this web page is still looking like that, is it? Still looking empathetic?
No, it isn't. That's right. That was the crisis we had.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Together the article, because
right.
yes, yeah, unfortunately, because but unfortunately, on the other hand, there is something which is something I'm eternally grateful for, which is the Internet Archive, where you can actually navigate the web page as it used to be. Okay, so you can still, and that's why in the article I put the link to the Internet Archive. Okay, so you will find that to the version of the website on the Internet Archive. Okay, but no, they're not using it anymore. They changed everything. They started using a company that actually deals with their communication. This is like a homemade website. It is the workers who did it, okay, because they can. But nowadays, their website is similar to all the others. It is a long scrolling web page. It has images, and it uses very traditional, well, not very traditional, because in the States you still have this idea, but more traditional trade union discourse. Can I just, I need to open a window, sorry. Sure. I'm coming back in a moment.
Sure. Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question?
Yeah, no, I didn't want to ask a question, but I just wanted to note, like, it is quite different. I was just looking at it myself on the screen, and it, you know, you see some similarities, the use of, you know, we still, but just, yeah, definitely looks completely different from before. It's easy to Google.
And
and the logo, sorry.
No, go.
I was just going to say I was looking at it too, and the logo is different as well. It's that the fist's gone.
It's gone.
I know. They did it on purpose because they didn't want me to start. No, it's crazy. They changed everything because a company, like a communication company, came in. Okay, and so they started using very standardized also. I'm so upset with them because it is very standard. It is it's not distinct. It doesn't distinguish itself anymore as it used to.
Somebody needs to go on
standard. It's very kind of weak, I would say.
Well, it raises for me the question is, in the first instance, when they produced the website that we looked at today, was it genuinely for empathetic reasons, or was it somebody needs to go on mute? Mute everybody. Oh, there we go. That's great. Thank you, whoever that was. Yeah, so was the empathetic union to increase the membership a marketing strategy in the first instance, or was there a genuine interest in the union being more empathetic?
I would say, because I interviewed some of the workers who created the website. Okay. No, it was genuine at the beginning. It was the way they felt. And but then they thought, or as the membership grew, this is the point, as the membership grew, they consulted their membership on how to go on, so on ways to grow more and ways to represent themselves, etc., etc. And this idea of the professional type of sorry, I saw something written in Italian, so I was distracted.
That's Lillian.
Lillian, thank you. So yeah, they got like there was a consultation of the membership, and they decided to hire a company to deal with the communication strategy of the union. When they started in this way because really that was how they felt, and it was also, it's coherent, you know, that it's not surprising if maybe I didn't highlight it enough, but the whole issue of the campaigns against some contracts done by Google, the real names policy, the equal pay, because they wanted to be inclusive with contract workers, precarious workers, etc. All this stuff and all this idea of you know, doing something for the good of everyone. Okay, mostly like voluntary work, and it is coherent with the website as it was at the beginning, and that was homemade. Okay, it represented the little group that started the union, but then it became something different, and it had to represent that difference. And it has to become more professional in a, you know, twisted way, I would say.
But shifted away from the empathetic discourse to some other kind of discourse, seemingly.
Yeah, which is a pity, because I would have kept it going.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to see the chat. Okay.
Got a few questions in chat. So Melissa said there's also mention of power more in the new website.
See, yeah, that's true.
I don't think it was mentioned at all in the old one, was it? The word power? I don't remember that in your presentation.
No, yes, there is. No, it's not in my presentation because I had to skip it. But there is in the third page, in the space 3. In space 3, let me see if I can share it again. Sorry. Just go back. Okay, here.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yeah.
No, there are references also in let's say looking at the menu at the top. Our power, as you can see, no, I didn't have time to go into the menu, but no, power is not shy, like they're not shy about power. Okay, they just put it in a different context. There is like for them the idea that there is power in a union, okay, as Billy Bragg used to say, is very important. But they coupled it with a different type of discourse.
Yes, yeah. Whereas here the power is coupled with fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More, yes.
Penny, I note your union logo behind you. There, Claudia,
I just thought
it's
Claudia might like
academic
to see
union logo.
Yay!
very not very circular. Just thought you might.
No, yeah, it's true.
Can I say with the style of the first version of the page, I think it feels to me because it's so like the Google search page, which is so bizarre in its context, as you were saying, you know, so olden days. So, I mean, there are functional reasons why you'd hardly put anything on a search page, because you just want to get out of it to the actual stuff. But it also, I wondered about whether you entertain the idea that when they say we are, they say, they're basically saying the Google search page looks like this, like our web page now. That we are claiming this, the close match between the Google style, which is so incredibly simple. They want us to read their union site as a bit, like you were saying, a better version, the split of good and evil. They want us to read this as a Google page, but a good Google page. We claim Google, we claim Google. We are Google.
It is, and indeed, in the article, I used the metaphor of the clove and viscount.
Yes, so interesting.
By Italo Calvino, because that's exactly what, for me, that's exactly what it is. Also because this type of, these tech companies in general, and Google particularly, managed also to have workers renounce their power sometimes and renounce fighting for their rights as workers, because they created this identity of, a very, like a modern company. We are all in this together. We are just one big family. We play while in the job, etc., etc. Like it's not job, it's fun. We are working for the good, for the greater good of the world. We are bringing, technology everywhere, etc. Their motto, Larry Page and Sergey Brin's motto was, at some point, it has been for some time, don't be evil. And the identity, the identity of the whole company, workers and bosses, was that don't be evil. At some point, the workers realized that they were trying to keep, to be faithful to the logo, to the motto, but the bosses were not so much doing it. And so they decided, yes, to reclaim. In a way, for me, that was their way to say, no, like Google, you lured us into this idea that we are a good company, but we are not. And so at the same time, we are reclaiming Google, and we are also reclaiming our rights as workers, because we are not the same anymore. I have to get rid of the bad viscount in order to, in a way. So, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I just want to say, Claudia, thank you very much. It's fascinating. Very, I haven't had much to do with Google, other than I use Search It, but as a company. And the other day I found myself looking for their homepage because we were working on the article. I was completely stumped by the homepage, and you've explained now why. I'm thinking, why is this homepage so weird? There you go. But look, I'm just going to take a little opportunity here to do a little bit of marketing. Hopefully you can see the page with, can you see the journal? I'm just checking with everybody. Can you see the journal page?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so this is the journal. It's Language, Context and Text, putting out a special issue. And Claudia's paper is down here, The Place of Feelings and Empathetic Discourse as a Strategy for Trade Union Organising. And there's a bunch of other articles. It's coming out in July. So we're really delighted that we've had people working for 12 months for this to materialize, and we've had a great relationship with the journal. So I just want to thank everybody that's involved, and you can see some of us are here listening that are on this in this article. But yeah, I'm really delighted that we've been able to pull together a journal looking at the language of peace, compassion, and empathy across a range of contexts, and the trade union context was very, very interesting. So yes, so keep your eye out for that. It'll be out soon. And also the conference, the International Systemics Conference, is on this topic of peace and compassion, which is also rather exciting. So looking forward to that. Does anybody have any final comments they'd like to make? Melissa says thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
On behalf of everybody, I say thank you. It was wonderful, Claudia, and thank you for getting up in the morning so early and coping without the air conditioner. I will.
Oh yes, I don't know what happened. But thank you very much for inviting me and for being such a nice and empathetic audience. And I hope I'll see you soon.
Yeah, ditto. And I'll organize the recording as a YouTube and send it to you, Claudia, and then it's over to you to use it how you wish. Okay, thanks everybody.
Okay,
Thank you. Bye.